So, what do they like, this new crew of yours?
Well, I would have to say they are decidedly motley. There's been nothing but drama since we left Earth orbit, and I'm told it's been continuing since I saw them last.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Deep Space Pride, a gay Star Trek podcast. I am one of your hosts, Johnson Lee, and with me is Mike Thurlow.
Hey, Johnson.
Hey, Mike. How are you today?
I am good. How are you doing?
Good. Happy Monday. How was your day?
Happy Monday. It wasn't too bad. It was a good, productive Monday, I have to say. I'm pretty happy with this Monday. So hopefully that'll carry through the week.
Wait, but you had a 10 a.m. meeting today, right? Those are the
I
worst.
did have a 10 a.m. meeting this morning, yes. That's a little rough to start your week off with, but
Always a little dreadful.
Yeah. But it was fine. It was actually a good meeting. Not bad as far as staff meetings go.
Great. So let's talk about Picard season 1.
Yeah.
So this we recorded again a few months ago, and we had a lot of opinions. We had a lot of thoughts.
We did, yeah. One of the things why I chose the opening quotes from Will and Picard talking in Nepenthe is, this crew is filled with drama. And
there's so much drama. I'm not sure I don't recall if we actually talked about how much drama there is. Obviously, we talked about the drama, but I'm not sure we, in our actual recap, talked about the extent to which there was drama. And there's a lot of drama.
There is a lot of drama. I mean, everyone seems to be carrying baggage on this ship.
So much baggage.
So, and when you don't deal with your baggage,
murder,
you have drama.
A lot of murder, a lot of death, actually.
A lot of
death everywhere.
Mm-hmm. There is.
Yeah.
Bad motherhood. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, I think that it is interesting because, the way that Picard talks about his crew when he's talking to Will in that scene, and he's like, yeah, you guys were, I don't remember the exact wording, but he's like, yeah, you guys were like fine. And this crew, this motley crew, there's so much drama. Yeah. It's really true. And it's such a stark, it's also in some ways very meta in the approach to the character building of the TNG era versus now, where now, like, to build a proper drama and a narrative, you have to have really complex characters that have a lot of dark pasts.
Well, Gene Roddenberry didn't believe in any of that. He believed that everybody got along, which doesn't really work for drama. And all of the drama from, a lot of Next Generation was external to the crew. So, except for, what really comes to mind when thinking of drama and the crew was when Picard goes on that mission, and I can't think of the captain's name, but Ronnie Cox plays him, plays the captain. It's a 2-parter where he takes over and he has a completely different style, and Riker actually resigns.
Oh, Chain of Command?
Yes, there we go. Nice. See, I love that you can pick off these episode names just like that. But that was a time. I mean, obviously Gene was dead at this point. He had passed on. And but I don't think if Gene had been around, I don't think that this episode would have ever played like it did. But there was a lot of drama in that crew, which is antithetical to what Gene Roddenberry thought of. And now jump ahead 25 years from that point, here we are with a crew that is really, I mean, the crew is really a reflection of life as we live it right now. I mean, honestly, like I've dated a lot of people. You have been on dates. Mm-hmm. I mean, people come with a lot of baggage, and sometimes you realize it, sometimes you don't. But we carry around a lot with us, and I think that this is a very realistic.
Hopefully, not so much death and murder, but
correct. Yes, we don't. Yes, we'll say no to the death and murder part. I hope. I've not dated anybody who has had that kind of baggage.
That'd be dark.
That would be quite
dark
a
and
story.
sexy. Maybe not.
No, dark, yes. Sexy, no. Scary.
Maybe it was like death happening around them versus like them actually killing people. Like, ooh.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, but this crew has definitely got its share of problems, and I mean, honestly, at the peak of what are we going into, the 26th century? 25th century. Again, this is, I mean, 2020 is quite a tumultuous year for us humans. So not unlike...
Yeah, it's interesting. And what you're saying about the way that these stories are formed is very much a product of the time. I'm rewatching the original series.
Right, there you go.
We are having a lot of side conversations about this, where even though it's a series that's supposed to reflect the 23rd century and such, is still very much a product of its time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
So it's
Next Generation really it's actually quite clean as far as that kind of stuff goes. I mean, there are certain episodes that are probably more controversial. One of the things that probably is a sign of its times is how Next Generation dealt with gender on the outcast. That if we look at it from a lens from now to then, or bring that episode to the now, it really doesn't hold up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
From that
it's
kind of
fascinating. I think
it's culturally fascinating, but definitely the original series carries a lot more of that baggage of the times, whereas Next Generation is very, very a lot cleaner. A lot more less controversial, more utopian almost. I mean, that's how Gene envisioned it until Deep Space Nine, and that wasn't actually Gene's creation. That was Michael Piller and Jerry Taylor and Rick Berman.
Oh yes.
So I mean, Deep Space Nine was created by the three of them. So and rightfully so. I think to kind of contrast the drama of having characters who didn't necessarily get along. And for those of you who are not watching this, but I am, I'm watching Johnson play with his hair in the camera, because y'all are going to see this, not?
I see it.
While we're recording, yes.
So wait, so the whole point of what we were trying to talk about when it comes to the intro is that not only is Picard's crew dramatic, we are dramatic.
We are.
That was the whole point.
That was the whole point. It was kind of an in-joke.
We as gays are occasionally dramatic.
Yes, and we're a motley crew at that.
I actually don't even think I'm that dramatic.
No, but you have your moments.
I have moments, but I think overall I'm very level-headed. Am I? I don't know. I need some outside observer to kind of judge that, but I think I'm fine. I don't think I'm that dramatic. You're not that dramatic.
I'm not very dramatic.
No, you're not very dramatic at all.
I have my moments, and Dennis flips out. Not flips out.
Dennis has his moments.
Dennis has his moments.
Dennis inadvertently is dramatic, and sometimes he's like, oops, I spilled all this tea. And where did this tea even come from? And I'm like, I don't need this tea right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if you get one or two drinks in him, it's kind of all over.
Yeah. He'll just talk about anything and everything.
It's like there's no vault. It's like
nope, there is no
the vault's loose, the door's gone. It's like everything spills.
Yes. Yes, he shares details of our lives with all of you. And,
and you just kind of look at him and you're like, what are you doing? And he's like, he's clutching his pearls. And he's like, what? What do you mean? So yes, there are moments like that.
Yes, there are moments, yes, where I would like to choose to share certain details with all of you, and where he just outright says them with no filter. So yes.
So anyway, everyone, we hope you enjoy our recap / review of Picard's first season.
Yeah, and just some caveats for this. Obviously, this was almost 5 months ago. This is actually still part of our first
5
recording.
months ago? I feel the time is changing. I said a few months ago.
Well, so it was from March 28th, 2020, and we are well into our 4.5 months beyond that.
All right, fine.
So nearly 5 months ago. So it is our first recorded episode. It's part 2. You've listened hopefully to some of part 1 on what our thoughts were of the series finale, season finale, not series finale, season finale. And now we talk about the whole season as a whole. And so there is possibly a little audio cutout here or there with our internet issues, and our audio isn't as glorious and beautiful as it is now with these wonderful new mics.
But and your new mesh router.
And I'm running a mesh router now, which improves our internet connection. Although Dennis would say otherwise. But that's a story for another podcast. Yeah.
Different conversation. Anyway, we hope you'll enjoy this recap of season 1 of Picard. So now let's talk about season 1 of Picard. Yeah. So Mike, what are your overall thoughts about season 1 of Picard, Star Trek Picard?
I really enjoyed it. I think someone once said, and Picard is who we need right now, and I totally agree with that, because I don't know. I really identify with who Picard is, even though he may not be who that person is at the beginning of the season. This person who, for me, really, I think of Picard and I think of integrity. And I think that is the running theme through Picard. Everything Picard's ever done is just this sense of integrity. Yeah, I mean, there are some points of arrogance, because, when you, as a person, and even speaking personally, like if I get into my integrity too much, that can come off as arrogance. Because what happens when you are so full of integrity, you get kind of like, if you get judgmental and you get like,
sure. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there were some downbeats, but I think, there's some things I really didn't like Girardi. I'm not a fan of Girardi, and I don't think I ever will be. But I love Raffi. I love Elnor. And I'm really sad that we didn't get more of Laris and Zayban.
Yes.
Because I love Laris, love her. I really wish, I hope that they somehow figure a way to bring her back on board. And whatever way
they
possible.
Were great. They were, it was really good.
They were put Picard in this place, listen, old man, when he was the old man, right? He was kind of like this grumpy old man. So I would love to see them again. So I thought that they were a really nice piece of the first part. And actually, speaking about the integrity piece, that came up in the interview with the Federation News person or whatever it was. Or Fox News of the future, God help us. But because that's a typical that's speaking of that point particularly, that person, that news person is exactly the type of news person that I can't stand, and that I would associate with something like Fox News. Is I promise I'm not going to talk about I promised I wouldn't talk to you about this, and I'm going to break my rule. I guess I really wished he would have gotten up and not done the whole speech about Starfleet and getting mad on screen. Like, he should have been like, listen, that's not what we're here to talk about. Interview over. But he didn't, obviously. I can't stand Clancy either. She's a hard ass.
But they
but
just,
I love,
my issue with Clancy is that the writers, I felt, and I know you're still talking, but the writers, I felt they almost went the lazy way with her and just made her drop F-bombs to make her seem like a hard ass slash like bitch,
Yeah.
And I was just like, why do you need to drop these F-bombs on Jean-Luc? Like, it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
I don't know why they decide to do that. And F-bombs on Star Trek, even though I think Michael Chabon had an interview about this where fans were asking him about like, oh, why the cursing? And he's like, well, I think cursing is important to, in our language, blah, blah, blah. But it just felt very off. Like, even when they do on Discovery once in a while, it pulls me out because it's such a 20th, 21st century colloquialism.
Yeah.
Even like lower curses in the 19th century are very different from what they are now. So for them to use like modern day colloquialisms like that, it pulls me out a little bit. If they had like other curse words like Battlestar Galactica, that's almost like, okay. But like, I don't know. Anyway, sorry.
No,
I thought they were lazy with Clancy as a character. I know she was like around for like 5 minutes, but like they just made her drop F-bombs to make her look like a foil to Picard. Anyway.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you kind of get a little more depth to her in the book. But again, she still is like someone who's a hardliner in the book as well. So,
but the thing about the book is like, not to get to in the book, but there are moments when they do align, like she was a hard sell on the whole way to help the Romulans, but eventually she was also like, no, we have to help them,
but then she got stuck in the political machinations, and when worlds were wanting to secede from the Federation, she was like, oh, she was looking at trying to save the Federation over. Well, first of all, like 11 or 12 worlds, and again, we're talking about the book, which we should probably do a whole different episode on.
Oh my God.
But I think why would you pan? Like, I mean, I don't know. I guess politics is not my strong point. I'll say that right off the bat. I don't like talking about it, but in this instance, I'll just say like 11 or 12 countries decided to secede from the United Nations. Like, fine, go ahead.
But that's a problem, because like if the UN says like, okay, you guys can go, wouldn't that make other countries feel like, oh, so are we also,
I guess so. Yeah.
Too? If you're going to prioritize this mission over the integrity of, our union, like I think that there's a large story there besides, 10 to 14 planets.
Okay. All right. Well. Yeah. So she had to deal with that, but I guess she was kind of a foil for Picard, but in the end, he did convince her to come around, and obviously she sent the fleet, which I thought was going to be like, oh, I'll send 10 or 12 ships and like do it the Deep Space Nine way, where they just send like a small armada, and no, they sent the whole thing, whole kit and caboodle, of these new starships, which look definitely like badass, like ready for battle type ships, which makes me wonder.
Very
and hope
angular design.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes me wonder how we're making those ships now, 15 years later, and also, what's the universe like outside of what we've seen in Picard.
Right.
We know that the border between the Romulans and Federation is kind of like free man space now, and there's the whatever group 7 was part of.
The Riders. Well, I don't know, Riders.
Yeah, Riders, something, whatever they are. Yeah, and so I think that the geopolitical landscape of the future of this time frame is interesting, and they're approaching the year 2500, so. We could be seeing kind of the beginnings of the downfall of the Federation, as I think is going to be explored in Discovery.
Yes.
So I think there's some interesting tie-ins there. So yeah, I thought, obviously if you chop up the season into like little bits, you've got like episodes 1, 2, and 3 are kind of like the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have like 4 and 5 are kind of like these standalone episodes, I think that and I can't remember too much about 4, and I should probably pull it up on at least the list of the episodes up on my
4
phone.
was Free Cloud.
Oh, I thought 5 was Free Cloud.
What?
Let's see. But I felt like there were a couple of standalone episodes, like the Free Cloud.
Oh no, 5 was Free Cloud. You're right, because 4 at the end of 4, that's when 7 comes on.
Okay, let's go through this.
All 4 was when they go to
Absolute Candor. Yeah. So 4 they pick up Eleanor.
5 is Free Cloud. At the end of 4 they pick up 7, and in 5 is Free Cloud.
6 was the Impossible Box. So track Soji to the Borg Cube. Oh, so they go to the Borg Cube.
7 was Nepenthe.
Yeah. 8 was Broken Pieces, and then the finale, 2-part finale.
Yes.
So yeah, so I mean, Absolute Candor, which honestly, like as a theory and practice, would be really interesting if we practice more absolute candor in our 21st century lives. But anyway, so that was, I felt like 4 and 5 were kind of like these standalone episodes where we pick up obviously a couple of crew members, and then we move into the next phase, which is kind of like the Borg cube that we've been teased about throughout.
Yeah.
And then we go home back to the Next Generation for Nepenthe, which, as you said earlier, it had all the feels. You're right. And I would probably go back and watch that one again, along with the Stardust City rag, if I wanted a standalone one. And then there's kind of like the penultimate episode, Broken Pieces, and then the 2-part finale. So I felt like it, and the funny thing is, like, so I don't know how many episodes they wrote to begin with, but they kept on saying, like, somewhere in the first 3 episodes, I think they expanded it. Maybe it was going to be a 2-part opener, and it became a 3-part. So it's interesting. I wonder how it changed on the back end, or whether they were only shooting 9 episodes and they decided to make it 10. But I felt like it, it definitely had blocks, which makes sense from both a production standpoint, but also from a story standpoint. And then, I felt like it really ended strong, pretty strongly. I mean, again, like this, I would go back and watch this whole season from start to finish. Would I so, and you asked me the question earlier before we started recording. So you asked me earlier if we compare this to other first seasons of other Star Treks. And I would have to say that I would watch, I mean, it's shorter. This is the shortest first season out of all of them. Except except for the animated series. So I think this would be something that I would watch again pretty much all the way through. Like, I wouldn't have to, this would be like I could do other things and watch the whole first season of this if I wanted some comfort season where I didn't have to think, and I could peek up at cool time, like interesting times, and then just enjoy it and feel like I'm like certainly now, and when we're talking about this, March 28th, 2020, this would be like comfort food for the soul right now. So I definitely would watch the whole season through again. I mean, I might skip parts, but so I think that this is something I would probably give this, I mean, an 8.5, maybe a 9 for the whole season. I think that, I feel like it's a strong season. It's a story arc, which I like. You see Picard change and develop through all of this. You get all of the emotions from Picard, which this is his show, so it's about him. So if, everyone else is kind of secondary. You've got these other characters that I kind of like, for the most part. So I think it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to more. And the other thing too, I would say is like I thought your point before when we were talking about this series finale, I think that you don't like the multimedia aspect of it, and I agree with that to a point, but I also like that you can dig into these other things and learning where Laris and Zaban came from, and seeing Raffi and the Verity, and seeing at least a mission of saving the Romulans in the comic Countdown is certainly accessible to most people. And if you really want to have that additional piece, you can. If you don't have to. I don't think you really lose anything, but gives you a little bit more of the tie. I really like the book. I think that the book, not that it's required reading, but I think it offers a lot more context for everything.
Yes.
And it just makes it better. It doesn't, I think it would be fine without it, and most people will probably be fine without it. But I think it added a lot of context to what we saw on screen this season. And so I think it's, I highly recommend it. And I think we should probably do an episode on just the book.
Yeah.
About that time frame. Yeah. So I think, I kind of wish they had plotted out a little bit more and given us it would have been nice to have 2 or 3 books during the season. But I know that they've greenlit more books, so that's
have they?
Yeah, they have.
Oh, okay.
So that's really cool.
Okay.
So yeah, so I thought it was a definite. I'll give it 8. I'll do a 9 just because I like more even numbers, but it's between 8.5 and 9 for me.
Okay.
Very, very little that. I mean, my biggest complaint about this season is Girardi, but that is actually the only detractor, the only major detractor, and that they killed Hugh, which I'm kind of like. But I think that they, you can't in TV in this day and age, you kind of have to be prepared for those moments where they, I mean, Game of Thrones and all these other shows have kind of created this thing where you can't be tied to the actors or the characters. Like, if it develops the story, then it develops the story. I don't know that Hugh's death developed the story other than for Seven to eventually kill Narissa. That's it. Right. Which, in all reality, we saw her fall. We didn't see her die.
Yes.
So, whereas with Elnor, you see the Romulan's head being sliced off. Like, he's dead.
Right.
She fell. So just like the Emperor fell in Return of the Jedi, and they bring him back in episode 9. But anyway, not to cross our sci-fi
cross franchises.
Yes, our franchises. Let's because we know for some unknown reason that there is this undercurrent of Star Wars versus Star Trek, which I am a fan of both. And
I like both.
So I don't know why people have to choose, but anyway. So that's my sum up of the season. And obviously, as we kind of go through this, we'll watch some next gen episodes, and it'll bring back more about what we saw in this season. So I'm sure we'll be talking about this season for a while. All right. So what did you think about season 1 of Picard? What score would you give it?
Yeah, so overall, I like the season. I kind of wish I loved the season. If I was to compare the season 1 of Picard to most other season 1s of other Star Trek series, I would say it's pretty good. Like, season 1 of TNG was not good. It was like very on and off. I mean, we were also talking like a 22 episode season, and it's more episodic, but it's very hit or miss. Season 1 of DS9 was hit or miss. Voyager was hit or miss. Enterprise was also hit or miss. Honestly, I thought the strongest season 1 was probably Discovery, personally, simply due to the pacing, the world building. There was like this sense of purpose throughout the whole season that I thought really helped to carry through.
Also, another redemption kind of storyline as well.
Yes, it was for Michael Burnham. It was about her kind of redeeming herself. That this whole like Clan War backdrop, I thought was a good catalyst of the entire season. Even going into the mirror universe and everything like that. Not to go into Discovery too much, but I thought that was season 1 had a very strong framework that really carried each episode. Like I said earlier, when I was talking about the finale, I definitely think that season 1 of Picard was it's much more methodical. It's much more introspective when it comes to how, it's very character centric when it comes to the focus on Picard. I think the biggest thing for me was trying to get used to this Picard, a Picard that we haven't seen for 20 years, 15, 20 years.
Right.
He just felt very different. And that for me was a shift because he was much less on TNG, and honestly, most of the movies, he was the soul in control of himself. To what you're saying about his character, obviously that hasn't changed in terms of his character. He has a very high integrity. The way that he carries himself is still a certain way, but in Picard, you see a much more weathered version of him. And you can also potentially blame it on his, on his brain disease, aromatic syndrome, whatever it is, that he seemed like much less in control of himself at certain points. But he's also like 94 years old, apparently.
Right,
so, it took me a while to really get used to him being back on screen and him being in a much different place than where we left him in Nemesis. And honestly, like even throughout all TNG, he's only like lost his temper like a few times. Like once in First Contact. Even I'm trying to think, like in TNG, there were a couple times, like maybe in like the Drumhead when he was like really pissed off that the Admiral was kind of like, doing a witch hunt like around the crew and stuff like that. But like there was like a few months like that, but this was just very hard to wrap my head around. So that was definitely a factor for me. But I thought that was good. Like I didn't mind it. Eventually, it took me a while to get used to it, and I ultimately did not mind that. That is the Picard that we have to work with. My bigger issue, and I also kind of alluded this in when I'm talking about the finale, is I felt that there were just so many missed opportunities, and by that, for example, Hugh, right? We know that Hugh was coming back as a character, and he just shows up in episode 2 or 3. They barely name him. I think Soji says his name once, or he says his name once. He's the director. But I'm like, okay, but where have you been the last 25 years since we saw you in Descent Part 2, and the whole thing with the artifacts, and it's a derelict core cube that, the Romulans are kind of, they're stripping it of technology to sell and stuff like that. But then the Federation has some people there for the reclamation project. It's just like there was like this world to explore. I don't feel that they really did a lot of the world building they could have. And this maybe also could speak to what you were saying earlier about, what is the state of the galaxy right now? Like what is the state of the Federation? The Klingon Empire was not even mentioned. Like, like what's going on with them?
Right.
This is also like probably around like 20 years after the Dominion War. So like, how has the Federation changed and stuff? Like there's so many things that I feel they could have touched on, but then they just throw Hugh in, or they throw the Spore Cube in. And I'm just like, well, but what? Like, and I just wanted more of that. And given how they paced the season, I feel that they could have given us more of that world building, especially when it comes to the character building. For example, a great example would be Seven Hugh seemed to have a little bit of history because Seven was like, oh, where's Hugh? Like, you know, but we weren't given anything about their background. You know, they're both like ex-Bs or whatever.
Right.
But it's like, it would have been so great to kind of flush that out a little bit so that Hugh's death meant more to Seven, you know?
Yeah, right.
And so that when Seven kills Narissa, it means more because she was like, that was our Hugh, but then it was like, but did you know Hugh? You know, like things like that, I feel like they really could have like done more with. And what I was saying before about like the show kind of like doing all this fan service and then kind of edging the fans, but then like not really like letting them come. Like, I'm just like, you know, because one thing that the show is really good at is the continuity aspect, because they like do all these throwbacks to like, you know, like sometimes it's like, you know, they just do mentions like, oh, the Picard maneuver or whatever, you know, but I appreciate stuff like that. And they definitely have throwbacks to like the history, even Bruce Maddox, he was only mentioned like twice in TNG, once in Measure of a Man and once in Data's Day, when you find out that Data is like corresponding with him. But that's been like the only time that you even hear about Bruce Maddox, and they bring him back and like, okay, you know, that's cool. So there's like this, I think they're really good with continuity, which Discovery wasn't, but you know, I think that Picard is very good with continuity and
except for the Sung brothers thing. Like that's the only continuity thing that I'm not quite.
Yeah, that was almost like a retcon to me. I was just like,
yeah, that was the big retcon of the season.
Otherwise I feel that they've been pretty good with the continuity aspect. So given that, you know, I wish that they not only like kind of do these mentions, but actually they also flush it out, you know? Like I would have loved to know where Hugh, you know, how did Hugh go from being a leader of this other Borg ship of all these like Borg that were disconnected from the collective to being the director of that Borg reclamation you know, like,
yeah, that's true.
There are just like things like that I felt were just missed opportunities, that I think that would have really given some moments more emotional resonance.
Well, I think that's the difference between Discovery and Picard, though. Picard is really about the man and the world around him, versus Discovery is obviously this starship-based, you know, show where they're going exploring or whatnot. So I think that's sort of where the difference lies. This is much more of a, like, not a procedural, but you know, it's much more of a character, although Discovery's got great characters, but this is all about one character in particular. And
but Discovery, I would actually have some of the similar issues with Discovery in that it's very focused on Michael Burnham, and the secondary characters, other than like Spock in season 2 and Pike in season 2, you know, don't really get as much. Like, it's very different because you're not talking about a 22 episode season where you can have one episode that's focused on one character, like you know, like all the old shows were like, you know. Even in Discovery, like Michael Burnham is like the central focus of every episode over a 12-13 episode season.
Yeah, I mean, there were some episodes though that she wasn't really the focus of. Although I'd have to go back and really. I haven't.
There was
really
that one in season 2 that was about Ariam, the cyborg.
Oh, Ariam, yeah,
that was really good. That was actually really good, but you didn't really get much of that. You know, it was mostly about Michael Burnham in season 1 dealing with her arc, her redemption arc, and season 2 dealing with the Red Angel, which was her. But
yeah. That's true. I mean, yeah, it does have to, but yeah, I mean, I think world building, I mean, maybe this, like, now that we've kind of got this new Picard, we'll be able to see more worlds and kind of build out, because obviously now, like, the situation is resolved, this situation is resolved, and now what's going to be next? I mean, it sounds like the universe in the 26th century. What is it? We're approaching the 26th century.
I think it's the 25th now. It's the turn of the 25th century, like 24th to 25th. 2399.
23. Oh, is it? 2399. So it's going to be the year 2400. Got it right. Yeah. I thought. Yeah. So I think like we're going to see what the universe looks like in what the galaxy looks like in the 25th century. 24th, 25th, 23rd,
25th, going into 25th.
Going into the 25th century.
Yeah.
So I think that we'll get some of that world building, because obviously the Rangers or whatever they are called are out there managing some of the border between Romulans and the Federation. And then, like you said, we haven't really talked about the Klingons. We've got Geordi out there. We've got Guinan, who's coming back next season. Which is exciting. That'll be really cool to see what they do with her. So I think, we still got the Enterprise out there, which I think at some point they kind of have to.
They have to
bring that back, and I think bringing back Geordi and Worf, I think will probably be the focus, like the stars of season 2. Or the guest stars, I should say, and who knows who else may pop up. I can't think of anyone else I want to see.
Beverly Crusher, no.
Oh yeah, well, so yeah, that's true. Beverly and Wesley, but yeah, I don't know. Like again, yeah, but I mean So there was only one real scene with Beverly in the book, right, where he was telling her he was transferred, and that was it.
Yeah,
and it was this very much like, you've been a friend for my whole life. So this whole romantic thing that's been kind of in the background of Next Generation since the first season, really, this sexual tension is never realized, or although it is in the books. So it is. So what, that's the other piece, that like half of the post Nemesis books are now like kind of retcon, because Picard and Crusher did get together and they did have a son. So
wait, what are you talking about?
In the books, so there are other books, not Picard related.
Other books.
Yeah. So so yeah, and also the Borg aren't around, or the Borg are destroyed. I mean,
after the Destiny series.
Right. Yeah.
I read some books.
Well, I read Destiny, and then as Picard was kind of announced and everything, I picked up the last book in the last book in the Next Generation series, which is called Collateral Damage, which is a really good book. Okay. I mean, you don't need to know some of the history. I mean, having read Destiny, I think is a good thing, but the other stuff that's happened is kind of covered in a way that I didn't feel lost, which I was worried about feeling. But it's obvious that Picard and Crusher are together and they have a son, and so
I was like, did I miss something?
No. So that's why going back to this whole thing, that's why Beverly didn't come up, because she really hasn't been a factor in this series at all.
Yeah.
Not even a scene in the book, and that's it. Whereas Geordi was always in there, and Worf was talked about and promoted to captain, and he was the captain of the flagship, the Enterprise. So but obviously that's like 15, 16 years ago from the Picard time frame. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, Beverly, could have showed up because Picard had that random doctor from Stargazer. And, just to give him his prognosis. And I was like, if anyone, Beverly could have done this.
That's true. Yeah.
She knew about like his brain issue. So that was but that would have been like a 5-minute cameo. I don't think it would have been worth Gates McFadden's time.
Maybe not. Yeah.
But overall, I would give season 1 of Picard a 7.5.
Oh, yes. Wow.
Yes. So, which is good. I mean, good in my mind is 7.5. Great would be like an 8.5, and excellent would be a 9.5 or something. So,
okay. All right.
Yes. So I thought it was it was like better than passing. Better than passing. Basically. Yeah, I just think again, going back to what I was saying earlier, given that they wanted a more deliberate pace. I felt that they could have fleshed out Picard's world a little bit more so that, again, the characters around him felt more full. But, I understand that at the end of the day, it's about Picard. It's about like his journey. And I do think that they gave in that respect, I thought that they did a good job, particularly with the way that they presented how he had all these issues around Data's death and how that was resolved by the end of the season. I thought that was pulled off well and that was executed well, particularly given how, what we were saying earlier, like how it was done in Nemesis. I just felt that there could be more around those characters around him, particularly if this is the crew that we're going to be working with, and Picard had this one line to Riker that was really funny in the Nepenthe episode, where he was like, "Oh yeah, they seem to have like a lot more baggage than you guys ever did." He's something like that, and it's true. Like they have like so many more issues, and I feel that they could have really like delved more into them somehow, but
well, when you think about it, like Next Generation was. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, though, Next Generation was kind of the first new modern series. It was this whole, like, obviously Gene Roddenberry launched it, so it was all about this idyllic society.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So there's that, and then
no conflict, everyone's happy.
Right, and then we got Deep Space Nine, which kind of gave more depth to the characterization of Star Trek characters.
Right.
People weren't perfect. I mean, obviously, the main character, Ben Sisko, was angry at, and
the trauma.
Trauma. So it kind of brought the real world down. And then we go backwards to sort of backwards, not to, I mean,
the Voyager was not like that. Voyager was very different.
Yeah. Voyager was, kind of bland, in my opinion, in a lot of ways. But, and then Enterprise was kind of like, oh, let's go back and do a prequel of the original series, and meanwhile we have iPads and iPhones, and they're still using flip switches and things like that on Enterprise. So that didn't really do a lot for me. And they talk about a series that left a lot of open-ended questions that they never resolved. This whole time war thing and whatnot.
Oh my gosh, the temporal Cold War.
Yes, that yes. Sorry, time war is Doctor Who. Temporal Cold War. Temporal Cold War is Enterprise. So talk about leaving things on the table. But I think that this series really evokes what life is really like for humanity. It's messy.
Yes.
It's messy. We make mistakes. We regret things. And we have to make our way back to our own personal redemption, whatever that may be. And I also think, like, and I know you don't love Raffi like I do, but I think that part of I know you're shaking your head, I nodded off.
On my ass, I cannot.
But I think Raffi represents, for me, and probably for a lot of people, like those lost friends that you've kind of lost touch with. You were close for a really long time. You either worked together or you grew up together or whatever, and you just kind of drifted apart, either through some situation, like obviously they had the traumatic, him quitting and her identifying this Romulan subplot, which she was right about all the time, all along, and nobody believed her. Which also pisses me off, because if she was, and in the book she is like one of the top Romulan intelligence personnel, and so to not believe her, I mean, probably O had something to do with that, or other Tal Shiar agents in the Federation had something to do with.
So this is going into the book, but
this is a little bit.
I mentioned this to you. I had issues with how they characterized Jean-Luc's response to her, where he was dismissive of her theory.
Yep.
And then that carried through in the season as well.
And maybe that is what he said when he said you were right. maybe that was him admitting to that piece of it, because you never really know what he said, why he said that.
Right.
But and she didn't put it together for us. So like maybe this whole experience has made him realize that he should have said you were right all along.
Yeah, but I just thought it was odd for Jean-Luc to be, especially since in the book the way they characterizes the relationship between Jean-Luc and Raffi, where basically Jean-Luc is like, you know, enraptured with like how great an officer Raffi is, right?
Yeah.
That he'd be so dismissive of her and her theory. Like, it just didn't feel like Jean-Luc. That felt off to me. And
I think that's where that integrity piece of his comes in, because it becomes part of his ego. And he's like, well, I and everyone in the Starfleet and the Federation is full of integrity. So why would this ever happen? Like maybe he couldn't grasp the idea that there was this big.
But Raffi's theory was that there was more to the whole synth uprising, and that, you know, maybe the Romulans are behind it. And then Picard was like, why would the Romulans want to their own salvation, right? Like, but you know, like, I just
well, there's kind of another loose end.
Sorry, go ahead.
That was another loose end then.
Yeah, I feel they almost did that just to create conflict between Jean-Luc and Raffi and give them this falling out, you know. And then I thought that even the whole thing where Jean-Luc basically, you know, after he's dismissed from Starfleet, the way that he gives up, I kind of buy it, where it's like, because he can't salvage the whole situation, he like kind of gives up. But at the same time, I'm like, does he give up like that? Like, you know, I don't know what he could have done, but you know, to like completely abandon like the situation and not make an attempt to save, like basically just completely walk away from it.
Yeah,
was also a little bit like off-putting to me, where I was like, I don't feel Jean-Luc, at least the Jean-Luc I knew, would just
give
like,
up that easy.
He would try to at least, you know, he wouldn't completely walk away. Like, I feel like he would, like, you know, do whatever he still could.
Yeah.
Even as a civilian, you know, he still has connections. Like, he could have.
I think that's the piece that, I think that's the only troublesome character piece of Picard through this show. Is like the whole idea that he would give up, someone who like something so easily, or apparently so easily, and then just go off and be hurt, like have his feelings hurt for 14 years before he decides to get off his ass and do something. Right. You know, like I think that is the only piece of this characterization and this character that I really struggle with is that. And I think you brought it right up to the forefront, is like the Jean-Luc that we know, the JL that we know now. I'm always saying that because I know it drives you crazy. That's the only hard part that I think I struggle with for this season, is that he gave up and had his feelings hurt because they wouldn't listen to him, and you know, he went home and became a vintner, and you know, like which, you know, I thought the house burned down in generations, right? So is this a brand new house, you know, whatever. But anyway.
And another thing that we didn't even talk about, know that I no longer understand how money and property operates in the Federation, because I thought there's no money, but Raffi's living in a trailer out in the desert, and Picard has a chateau, and then Raffi's also like, oh, you're living, you know, with your like antique furniture or whatever. I'm like, who cared about that shit anymore? No one should care about antique furniture anymore in this century. And like, why is she living in like a trailer in the middle of nowhere? You know, like it didn't. So I was also like, wait, so is she poor? But does money exist? You know, because that's another problem. Like, because now they're like introducing that they were both discharged from Starfleet, but because of their privilege, they live in very different situations. But I'm like, but does that kind of privilege still exist? This is really confusing, you know?
That's true. Yeah. I mean,
that's one of the reasons why she's so bitter. Like, you know, that Picard can just go live this nice life on his nice vineyard, and she loses her family and needs to like live in the middle of nowhere in a trailer. Like, I'm just like, but that doesn't make sense, you know? She can have her own vineyard, you know, like based upon like, you know, how things should be operating within the Federation by the 24th, 25th century.
yeah.
So that was also confusing because now they're introducing like modern day like problems into this world that is, you know, it kind of goes against like the world that was set up by Roddenberry, you know. So it's that was also a little confusing.
Yeah. That is confusing, I think. But I also think like the whole idea that there is a utopian society is just unrealistic even now looking at it. I think that, you know, you create this future and you and which, you know, at some point we'll talk about like how we got into Star Trek and all that, but you know, I think one of the lessons I learned from the very early watching of Star Trek was that everyone was accepted for who they are no matter what. And so I mean that in itself is the utopian society. I don't remember maybe it wasn't even until the Next Generation where it was kind of identified that money is no longer a thing, because I can't think of anything. I'll have to do some research and see if it was ever mentioned in the original series.
Definitely TNG.
The Ferengi kind of brought that to light, I think, at some point.
Oh yes, and then
but also Deep Space Nine totally blows out of the water because, you know, the rest of the, you know, outside of the Federation is all about money and like bartering and things like that. So,
but it's also a little bit fuzzy because now they introduce like Latinum and like how that operates, but then it more operates outside the Federation than within the Federation.
Yeah.
So that was also a little fuzzy. But you know, I was just like, you know, like, because it's also like, there is, as I was saying earlier, there is this introduction of class privilege between Picard and Raffi, where because Picard's family has had this vineyard, you know, he gets to live on it, and then Raffi gets to live in the desert in California or something, or wherever she is.
Well, she's in that famous
I don't remember what it's called, but
I don't either.
But
That's true.
she's like living as a destitute, and I'm like, I don't know.
That's true. That's definitely one of the gaps of the season, is that whole idea. But it sounds like we both enjoyed the season.
Yes,
we're both looking forward to more Picard.
For sure, of course. I'm very much looking forward to season 2 whenever they actually start shooting it.
Right.
We hope you've enjoyed this review and recap for season 1 of Picard. If you'd like to share with us your thoughts on the season, email us at deepspacepride@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at deepspacepride. We'd love to hear from you. Give us your thoughts on the season and any other thoughts on our future episodes. And that's it for this week. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.
Deep Space Pride is a production of Coconut Media Works. Executive producers Bill Smith and Dan Davidson. For more great Star Trek discussion, discover the other shows of the Trek Geeks Podcast Network at trekgeeks.com or find us in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
looking at?